You ever get that feeling like you think you're following the news, you know what's going on,
Yeah,
and then bam, something happens, and you're like, wait a minute, what just happened? It's
absolutely.
like those legal dramas when there's like a crazy plot twist that comes out of nowhere.
Right out of left field.
That's kind of how I feel about this whole thing with the federal judge and the Justice Department and Mayor Adams. It's like, whoa, hold on.
Yeah, no, it's definitely got people talking, that's for sure.
So we're going deep today, folks, into this whole situation with a New York City mayor and a criminal case that the Justice Department wants to drop and a judge who's not so sure about the whole thing.
This is one of those stories that really highlights how things actually work in the legal system, not just what we learn in, civics class.
Exactly. It's about checks and balances and the
Hmm.
whole idea that no one, not even the Justice Department, is above the law.
Hmm.
So to get into all this, we've been digging into some reporting, especially from Politico, and they've got some pretty incredible details about how this is all playing out.
Oh, yeah, Politico's been all over this, and their reporting shows just how much this case has shaken things up, both at the Justice Department and for Mayor Adams himself.
So the story goes that a federal judge has actually ordered Mayor Adams and these federal prosecutors to appear in court to explain what's going on with this whole attempt to drop the case. And apparently this has caused like a mini crisis over at the Justice Department, and things are pretty chaotic in the Adams administration too.
You don't see that kind of reaction every day. It really tells you that this isn't just some routine legal maneuver.
No, definitely not. So the judge in this case is U.S. District Judge Dale Ho, and he's not messing around. His order isn't just a suggestion. It's like, all right, everybody, you need to be in my courtroom and you better be ready to answer some tough questions.
Judge Ho is definitely signaling that he's not going to just take the Justice Department's word for it. He wants answers, and he wants them straight from the source.
And get this, he specifically asked for explanations on three main things. He wants to know why the prosecutor wants to dismiss the case in the first place, what Mayor Adams's reasons are for going along with it, and the actual legal process that they're trying to use to make this dismissal happen.
He's basically saying, show me your work. He's not just going to rubber stamp this. He wants to understand the why, the how, and the what of it all.
Yeah, he's not just going to let this slide by without some serious scrutiny. And it's not just Judge Ho who's raising an eyebrow here.
Mm.
Legal experts are actually debating about how much power a judge even has in this kind of situation.
Right. There's a whole legal back and forth about whether a judge can actually stop the Justice Department from dropping a case if they really want to.
Plus, we got to mention this request from Common Cause for a special prosecutor.
Oh, yeah. That adds a whole other layer to this, doesn't it?
It definitely does. It shows that there are groups out there who are really worried about the way this whole thing looks. It's like they're saying, hey, this just doesn't pass the smell test. Something's fishy here.
And that adds to the public pressure on the Justice Department to explain themselves.
Right. So let's talk about why the Justice Department wants to drop this case in the first place. We've got to look at this memo from Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil B.
This memo is key. It lays out the Justice Department's reasoning, and, well, let's just say some of the reasons are raising a lot of eyebrows.
Lay it on us. What's in this memo that's got everyone talking?
Okay, so the memo says that the case has improperly interfered with Mayor Adams' re-election campaign. It also suggests that continuing the case could hurt Adams' ability to support the Trump administration's agenda on immigration. But here's the really interesting part. The memo explicitly says that the decision to drop the charges is not based on any doubts about the evidence in the case.
Hold on. So they're not saying that they think Adams is innocent or that the case is weak?
Nope, not at all. They're basically admitting that they want to drop the case for political reasons, not because of any issues with the evidence itself.
Okay, now that is really interesting. It really makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes.
It definitely raises questions about whether political considerations are influencing legal decisions in this case.
So what does this mean for Mayor Adams? If the charges are dropped, does that mean he's completely in the clear?
That's where it gets even more complicated. You see, this dismissal they're proposing, it's without prejudice.
Without prejudice, what does that even mean?
It basically means that the charges could be brought back at any time. It's not a full exoneration, it's more like a pause button.
Oh, so the Justice Department could just decide to hit play again whenever they want.
Exactly, and you can see how that could create some problems. Imagine you're Mayor Adams and you know that these charges are just hanging over your head. They could come back at any moment. It gives the Justice Department a lot of leverage.
Yeah, I can see how that could be used to pressure someone into cooperating.
And that's a big part of why Judge Ho is being so careful. He wants to make sure that the Justice Department isn't trying to pull a fast one or use this dismissal as some kind of bargaining chip.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty of Judge Ho's two-page order. What exactly is he saying that's making it clear he's not on board with this dismissal?
Judge Ho starts by pointing to a very specific part of the federal rules of criminal procedure. It's called Rule 48A, and it basically says that the government can't just dismiss a case whenever they feel like it. They need the judge's permission.
So it's not just a formality. The judge has to actually sign off on it.
That's right. And Judge Ho's making it very clear that he doesn't see his role as just a rubber stamp. He's saying that the court has a duty to look closely at why the government wants to dismiss the case.
So he's not just going to take their word for it. He wants to know their reasoning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he goes on to say that while the government usually has a lot of leeway in these kinds of decisions, it's not unlimited.
So it's like a checks and balances thing.
Exactly. The judiciary is there to make sure that the executive branch isn't abusing its power.
It's like that whole separation of powers thing we learned about in school.
Right. It's all about making sure that no one branch of government gets too much power.
Makes sense. So what else does Judge Ho say in his order?
Well, he brings up this thing called the manifest public interest standard. It's basically a legal test to see if dismissing a case would be harmful to the public.
So he's saying that even if the Justice Department has its reasons, if those reasons go against what's good for the public, then the judge can say no.
That's exactly what he's saying. And it's a pretty high bar to clear.
So given that the reasons for dropping the charges seem to be all about politics, what do you think? Does dropping this case really serve the public interest?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, if you've got a mayor who's accused of serious crimes and the evidence seems to be pretty solid, then dropping the case just because it's politically inconvenient, well, that doesn't exactly inspire confidence in the justice system.
It feels like something's off, right?
It definitely raises questions about whether justice is being served.
So what happens next? What's the next step in this whole legal saga?
Well, everyone's waiting to see what Judge Ho does at this upcoming court hearing. And there's a chance that he might actually question the acting deputy attorney general under oath about why they want to drop the case.
Whoa, hold on. So he could put Emil B. on the stand and grill him about his motives.
That's a real possibility. And that would be a huge deal. It would be like watching a legal drama unfold in real time.
I can't even imagine the tension in that courtroom.
Yeah, it would be electric. And no matter what happens, this whole situation has really shown a light on how politics and the law can sometimes get tangled up in ways that aren't so pretty.
It's a reminder that the justice system isn't perfect, and that sometimes things happen that make you question whether everyone is really playing by the rules.
And it's also a reminder that we need judges like Dale Ho who are willing to ask tough questions and stand up for what they believe is right, even when it means going up against powerful institutions like the Justice Department.
So for you, the listener, keep an eye on this one. It's a story that could have some major implications for how we think about justice accountability and the balance of power in our government. And it's definitely not over yet.